All right, hello and welcome to the AAPEX webinar series. My name is Kelly Denman and I'm with AAPEX Event Management. The webinar series will host one webinar per month leading up to our in-person event in Las Vegas. AAPEX 2024 will take place Tuesday, November 5th through Thursday, November 7th. And in preparation for the event, be sure to check out apexpro.com for our schedule and a list of event details. As a friendly reminder, all attendees' mics will be muted for the duration of this webinar. There will be a Q&A at the end of this presentation, so please use the chat function to submit any of those. And today's webinar is Consumers in Advanced Vehicle Technologies, and it is my pleasure to introduce Jim Fish.
Hey, good afternoon if you're on the East Coast. Good morning to everyone else, unless you happen to be in Europe. Good evening. And welcome to today's session where we have really an all-star set of panelists on the topic of consumers in advanced vehicle technology. We're going to go through some introductions and the structure of the session today is after the introductions, we're going to introduce the topic and then we're going to cascade through present, transition, and future in the aftermarket repair space and how these technologies are impacting today, things that are underway, and then what the future looks like. And I will share just a slide with you to give you a better feel for myself. As indicated, my name is Jim Fish here on the slide, and I'm a professor at the University of Michigan in the College of Engineering. I also work with Opus IDS and Diagnostic Network. I also have previously worked with Wayne State's School of Business. I have a venture capital fund, the New Hammer Ventures there. I have worked in depth with Amazon, former employee of Bosch. My automotive aftermarket really started way back at Snap-on, and prior to that, I worked on engines in distributed power at DTE, which is a unit of the local utility in Detroit here, and I was a product engineer for 10 years at Ford. So I would like to pass it over to Ryan to give a quick introduction of himself, and then we'll go to Dirk and then to Scott.
All right, thanks, Jim, and thanks for inviting me to be on this panel here with, as you said, all-star cast here. So it's amazing when I throw this number up there, 32 years in the aftermarket already. That's gone by really quick. And I started as a technician when I was 16 years old, worked in a shop, and did that for many years. And then around 2010, transitioned into full-time training developer, manager, and here I am today as director of training with Standard Motor Products, overseeing engineering, testing, as well as training for our company. I'm also involved with MEMA, the Motor Equipment Manufacturers Association, currently chair of the Mobility Technology Council. I'm in my second year as a board member for ASC, and related to this topic, I was subject matter expert along with some other gentlemen on the panel here to work on the XEV exams, and currently living the life here. I'm a third different hybrid now, and I'm a farmer and diesel truck guy, but I also drive a hybrid as my daily driver here. So thanks.
Right, thank you, Ryan. Dirk, can you give us a few moments on the journey that led you to where you are today in the aftermarket?
The journey, yeah, it's an exciting world in my life right now. Yeah, I'm German. Dirk Fuchs is my name. Don't know me. I came from Germany 10 years over here to the United States. But I was planned to be an expert here, an expat, and, working for one of the automotive suppliers. ZF was their name. Was a great journey. Brought me to the United States. 2 years, 5 years ago, I changed my position. Actually, went to ICAR to support the commissioner here in Berkeley and supported them with electric vehicle technology and other stuff. 2 years ago. It got so big that I got more and more requested in emergency situations that I founded my own consulting company, what is called Electric Mobility Consulting. So, and yeah, now I'm have a company what provides automotive training for specialized in electric vehicle certification training program to the European guidelines. And I do extremely a lot of emergency responses. I'm right now here in Montreal. They unloaded a shipping container in the harbor full of batteries. I'm not entitled to tell you what manufacturer it is, but a lot of EV batteries were in there, modules. Unfortunately, they went in a thermal runaway, and now we have to deal here with the mess a little bit. So that's then my job, how to mitigate this, remove the batteries safely. Then there's always stranded voltages and stuff like that. And or when a manufacturer has a problem, or forensic work is necessary. That's right now the stuff what I'm supporting and doing. Thank you, Jim.
Wow, great. We're looking forward to hearing your tales from the front line. And lastly, Scott Brown, who does a number of different things, and I'll assure the viewers of the webinar that that is not a digital background, that is a vehicle, and he is in a repair shop, and we have several topics and questions today that we'll go over dealing with just that, an EV in a workshop. So Scott, tell us a little bit about your background and what you're working on these days.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. And yeah, this is my 41st year in the aftermarket. And when I arrived in the aftermarket coming out of tech school, first thing I discovered was all the old guys wanted nothing to do with these new oxygen sensors and computer controlled carburetors. So that sent me on a journey to master all that and look where we landed. Um, I own and operate inside of a workshop here, a 13,000 square foot facility, about 35 miles outside of Los Angeles. So being in Southern California, we have seen the hybrid and battery electric vehicle transition. And in my shop here, we've been working on hybrids for well over a decade, probably closer to almost two there. And so we've got, Toyota Prius is probably our number one car line that we service here in the shop, and those cars deliver lots of service. And we've actually purchased customers' cars that retired them and turned them into either loaners or transportation vehicles. We're now seeing a lot more BEVs, and I'm excited to talk about that. The other things that I've been involved with in the industry, back when I was going to the GM Technical College here in LA, I discovered that they were starting to use computers and to get information, and I noticed they had a bulletin board dial-up tied into this machine, and I said, "What's that all about?" And so I dove into the internet, or prior to the internet, and then got involved with the internet. Uh, it's been a long ride, and I'm also one of the co-founders of the Diagnostic Network that Jim talked about there briefly, and that is a platform for technicians or industry professionals that want to stay in tune with what's happening in the industry. And yeah, EVs. I've now owned not only the shop cars, but I've bought and purchased a plug-in Chevrolet Volt, which is an extended range vehicle. Drove that thing over 100,000 miles, 98% all electric. I've got a couple of Teslas, and now I've got this new Tesla right behind me that I'm going to be exploring deeply. And it's an impressive machine, and there's lots to learn. And I'm happy to be part of this panel.
Yeah, thank you so much, Scott. Well, I would like to dive right in, and Scott, we'll start with you, and that is at the shop level. Um, Recently, Nick Pinchuk, the CEO of Snap-on, appeared on Bloomberg. In fact, I think it was last Tuesday, and he stated that there was caution in the field and at the shop level on long-term investments. They're seeing large, durable, big ticket items and things that are multi-year investments. He's seeing caution, and the business is surviving on more of the standard build out your portfolio. Um, are you seeing caution in the equipment necessary to service EVs, or are shops starting to make the transition? I know for yourself, you're kind of a early adopter of the technology, not only as a consumer but as a shop. But from the shop perspective, what are they beginning to invest and embrace this, or?
Well, I think that's a great question. Yeah, we have been an early adopter, but a lot of the repairs and services that we do are just require just general skill sets and knowledge. High voltage equipment, yes, we've got some high voltage equipment here in the shop. We've got our standard PPE that we need. But one thing that we have not invested in yet is a lift table to take out a 1,000-pound battery thing. And I'm kind of waiting on that because I'm not seeing that. I can tell you that, I drive by a Tesla big, large service center every single day, okay, on the freeway. And I can tell you that there are pallets of batteries stacked outside and inside that building. So there is there's going to be a market for battery swapping, in the future. I was at an event earlier this year where it was a conference where they had a lot of educators. It was all EV, and the discussion was, about servicing and educating. And the Tesla guys were saying, they can swap those batteries out in about 20 minutes. So it's not a real big load if you have the right tools and equipment. But as far as the market out there and the folks that I integrate with, a lot of them are still not, they're not going all in on EV because the market is just not there. We still, we have a lot of ICE vehicles out there, a lot of hybrids, but we proactively are trying to advertise and get more business out there. And I think customers are really looking to engage in a shop that has high knowledge and can talk the vernacular around the hybrid and battery electric vehicles. Um, and so that's really where the shop should be investing in, is their knowledge and their serviceability and intelligence around the vehicle. And then they'll be able to navigate the equipment needs and the business case demands. But, I did listen to that. I did listen to the CEO, the Snap-on CEO, talk about, a lot of caution and uncertainty or what have you. But, in this trade, in the repair market, the automobile is a primary piece of transportation. It takes a lot of skill and expertise to provide that service, and we are going to be a valuable commodity. So I don't see us as, even in a recession, we're still thriving. So I think that things are looking positive for us.
Okay. Dirk, from your perspective and as you interact with at the shop level and how the consumer behavior is beginning to bring EVs into aftermarket shops, can you share some perspective on our shops beginning to prepare, invest, and service these vehicles, but from your perspective?
So I can mirror a little bit Scott's opinion and his message. When he says he drives by at the Tesla facility, sees all the batteries, I see a lot of batteries. And I personally think the battery repair possibilities have to be increased. I'm a training provider as well. A lot of requests, not a lot. People come and say, "Dirk, we don't want to learn." They want to. The basics is always hard to advertise. Let's say it that way. It's always like, we want to learn how to repair a battery. Like, okay, do you understand the basics? Maybe, but I'm not sure they do. So you have to start slowly. So I did the last few years a lot of in safety training and other things, and now I want to go more in the next step of battery repair. Then there's such a, and really there is a demand, I get all the time. But comes to that point, we have to also increase our tooling capabilities, and repairing a battery and think, oh, let's put a new battery module in a 6, 7, 8-year-old battery. That's not working out either. So we have to learn like how we can match battery cells. So cell matching, that everything works. How you measure a battery cell. What is the right tooling for doing it? Is it ACIR? What is ACI? It means we measure the inner resistance on one frequency. What is absolutely not working out, but there's so much what we have to learn and the industry have to understand. So impedance testing and other things comes really important. So I'm not so sure, Jim. I'm 100% answered your question, and I don't want to go in a rabbit hole. But we need increasing in tool capabilities, charging and discharging capabilities as well. I'm doing a lot of emergency responses, and DOT requires now more and more battery has to be discharged before it's allowed to going on America's roadways. So there comes a lot of things, and we're figuring it out as we go. As always, this is America, but it's an interesting and exciting journey. So I love it.
Yeah. Thank you for that. For the viewers and people following along, you can post a comment or a question in the chat. We can see those and we can respond to them. Perhaps it would be even better to respond to them in line as we're talking about the topic. But we have reserved some time at the end for more of an open forum. I have a question for Ryan. When we look at the demands from technicians as they seek to upskill, as they seek to get ahead. They do that via training. I've often dubbed this the age of the YouTube technician as they consume training there. But Ryan, you oversee and have your finger on the pulse of what technicians are seeking for training. And are you noticing anything in on a macro scale in the past years in regards to what classes are technicians interested in?
Yeah, so as with the other two gentlemen on the panel here, you'll see specialists become more and more popular, I think. And so there's certain people. I was with a group of people in College Station, Texas, where Dirk was doing a training class, and guys flew in from around the country and made a significant investment to really get into the EV training. What we're seeing kind of in Main Street America is a lot of people that Scott referred to as when he got in the business, and even myself in the 90s, there were a lot of people like OBD2. I'm not investing in that. That's way too much to learn into. So we're seeing kind of that attitude with some of this too. And so, as with any new topic, whether it be ADAS, electric vehicles, at first there's that initial inrush of, oh yeah, I want to learn about this, and then it kind of backs out. So I think you have kind of some peaks and valleys with the demand on some of this stuff. And so when it came out, a lot of people were curious, but now after a few years, we're starting to see people go, you know what, not my business model. I'm going to go over here. But then there's those specialists that are really seeking to go a little bit further. Kind of as Scott mentioned with the tooling thing, my old shop here in West Michigan, twice now has needed a battery lift table and said, we're not quite ready to pull the trigger on that yet. And so they decided to send it over to Grand Rapids Hybrids, a friend who has all the equipment and the training and necessary stuff to do it. So I think that's where a lot of people are still right now. Like, I want to know, but my business model hasn't quite gotten there to further invest in it.
Yeah, I see that ASE has created certifications around some of these advanced technologies. There's an ADAS certification now, also related to EVs. So a question that I have for Scott, we're still in present day, and then we'll get transitioned shortly, is how does the aftermarket shop today deal with an EV that comes in for powertrain issues?
That's how does the shop deal with it? Well, I mean, if they're a professional shop, workshop, they would probably have to self-qualify themselves to take that vehicle in the first place, right? They wouldn't want to just take the first one in and try to figure it out on the fly. There are so many basic service precautions that need to be taken as you intake a vehicle, and you miss one of those, you can screw things up. The story about the Prius going into the quick lube center where they didn't power the vehicle down and they're draining the oil and they got the filter out of it, and all of a sudden the ice turns on. That's a horror story, and it's absolutely terrible. So professional service shops, they should know where to gate themselves and understand what's going on. Here in Southern California, again, I'm kind of in this other micro economy here where the vehicles that are coming into the market or that are here, we're seeing those every day. Every single day, we've got those alternative propulsion machines in here, and we've kept our staff up to date, and we continue to culture that knowledge set through a number of tools. We've got online training that they go to. They go to classes like what Ryan's company provides, and we try to feed ourselves. We keep in tune with all the different things that are happening in the industry so that we can stay on top of this and deliver a proper service to the client. We don't want to deliver a disservice, because we were way in over our head. We need to know how to qualify ourselves. But that's where I hope I answered your question. I think Dirk
Yeah, that
spun me
was
off a
good.
little bit.
You did remind me of this video I must have seen on Twitter of these people that put an internal combustion engine into a Tesla and took it to a Valvoline, and they of course videoed it to see everybody's reaction.
Funny.
But Scott, I think what you're
Rob,
alluding to is one of those pet peeves of mine for years, where somebody says we service all makes and models, right? And we know
Yeah.
well enough that's a very difficult model. And do you really? So if somebody brings in a Mercedes, do you have the proper tooling to do this? And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think you're spot on with that. It's not like the old days where we're used to doing drum brakes. We'll learn the first disc brake when it comes in. No, it's you have to be trained and prepared and do just like what you've got in the bay there. I've learned more stuff after hours by playing with my own stuff and buying the vehicle and digging in to learn about it before that first customer's vehicle comes in. We need to be comfortable, not like, well, we'll give it a shot. Those days are long gone.
Yeah, yeah, and just to tie onto that, Dirk mentioned something earlier. He's from Germany, he's in the United States, and he mentioned this, when he was talking a bit ago. It's completely different in other regions of the world. I mean, you don't earn the right to work on an automobile until you've qualified yourself, right, Dirk?
That's right. Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You as a professional repair shop in Germany, you need minimum a 4-hour awareness training to be allowed to check the tire pressure on that vehicle behind you. So you
Yeah,
need a certification. Of course, awareness, not much. You can do it online, but you should know the hazards and risks associated with an electric vehicle. So as long nothing happens, no accidents happens. Of course, nobody cares. It's everywhere. But when there would be something, an accident, they're like, "What? Scott gave you that work?" and you are not qualified for that and you got hurt, that would be a huge problem for you, Scott, in that moment as a shop owner. So there's different countries, different worlds. So here, free trade, the country of the free. So different world, but yeah, I like both worlds.
yeah, I think Dirk, you opened up my final question for kind of the present tense, and that is there anything that the shop of North America could learn from Europe in the way that they adopt, embrace servicing advanced technologies as they come into the shop?
um, So in Europe or in my education, we focused a lot on the technology themselves, to understand the technology and really start from the basics, learn the basic understanding of electricity, really understand Ohm's law, then you understand different resistance, what associated with voltage and current, for example, and what resistance changes due to that. For example, I like to show usually an Audi slide. Then Audi puts a slide in with an EV in the middle, and then they put 16 feet in each direction. That's the working space Audi wants to create for maintain and repair an electric vehicle. And you would ask, why is this? Why you need so much space? It's a car like the vehicle behind Scott. Why? So the reason why they want to have a bigger repair space is literally we want to protect the vehicle in the repair process from any contamination. So let's say you have somebody next to you and he's grinding, the other guy next to it is welding. So sparks, dust, dirt, debris flies around, and you open a high voltage connector. High voltage connectors are rated in a milliohm area. You change that milliohm with dust and dirt really, really easily. And then a connector goes from 1 milliohm to 10 milliohm. This is something what you can't measure with a regular multimeter. So we talk about really, really low measurement, low resistance. But that resistance will change the electrical power over connector dramatically. So that means from 100 watts would go over a thick high voltage cable and over a high quality connector. All of a sudden you have 1,000 watts, and 1,000 watts is your toaster. So the outside influence by doing this, by opening connector with dirt dust that you have to cover them, and those basic stuff. This is what in Europe, for example, we teach much more of those basic things. Here in the United States, when I look down to Ryan's company, he will 100% agree to it what I say now. The most successful training class would be, you would say, this is the problem, guys, and this is the solution. That's the problem, that's the solution. So here in the United States, the mentality of learning is established over years that we want a quick fix. We want to make money as fast as possible. I want that too. Everybody wants that, so it's nothing bad. But when it comes now to electric EV technology, ADAS technology, everything where really people can get hurt when something goes wrong, I'm super much in a favor for a little bit bringing the European ways over. Start with the basics, start learning from the beginning, and when you have really learned the right way of repair, then we can go back a little bit more to those older traditional ways of, hey, when we have that problem, this is the solution. Everybody wants the golden bullet, but please, guys, start with the basics. That's my advice. In every training class I do, it's like everybody like, oh yeah, I'm doing a lot of diagnostic, and then when we go in things back, and they're like, oh, now I understand it. Now, oh my God, yes, Dirk, you opened my eyes. So I get a lot of complimentary feedback when I'm doing this. But in the beginning, everybody has maybe not fear, but everybody like, oh, why I have to talk about Ohm's law? And then you can make it exciting.
Yeah,
So that's a little bit my feedback
yeah,
to it.
yeah. Now moving to like the transition, and then in a few moments we'll go to the 5+ year future when all changes have manifested in the automotive aftermarket. Ryan, do you see these new technologies impact the technician shortage at all, either as a headwind or a tailwind? Does it make the technician shortage worse, or is this finally something interesting to folks that are making career decisions? Like, what's your perspective?
You might be right. There's my non-committal answer. I think both is the answer on that one, Jim. It's going to expedite the retirement, probably, or the exit of some technicians, but it's definitely going to intrigue and draw in uh, other younger talent. Um, you see people working at remote programming facilities. These people know nothing about a car. They're computer people, 100% remotely working offboard on vehicles, helping do software calibrations or set up ADAS calibrations. And so it's a new opportunity to bring people into the industry, intrigues them. I do a lot of presentations on technician mentoring. It's one of my passions of how do you bring a young person in, and maybe the same was for Scott or Dirk early on in our careers. I started a shop in high school. I grew up, my dad was a heavy equipment mechanic. And so you started the shop, and the first thing they do is like, all right, change oil, change the tires. And you get some of that stuff for a while. And if we do that in today's world, it quickly kills the excitement of any youth trying to enter in. And to Dirk's point, it's important. We need building blocks. We need to understand and get stuff going. But I look at my own son who's 18. His first week in the job, his boss said, "Pull that engine out," and it intrigued him and got him going. But a lot of this older generation is scared of the computers, Now, a lot have embraced it. I'm not painting with a wide brush here, but I see a lot of shops are like, we're not going to mess with ADAS. We're not going to mess with calibrations. Like, well, that young kid right there that you're forcing against his will to do oil changes, he knows a lot about this stuff and he quickly understands this. Invest in him and or her and help walk them through this process and get them in. And yeah, I've seen several shops really change their philosophy on that. And I think that's the stuff that's going to really draw people in. You know, in our days, you had to be a plumber, electrician, uh, all that type of stuff. Now you need to be a computer programmer as well with this.
You want me to circle through and
Yeah,
expand on that?
Scott, I'm
Uh,
interested in your take on that.
yeah. So the next generation
Yep.
technicians, I've seen I've been paying attention to the rising for a long time, and I wish I would have done this years ago. But a few years ago, I started an apprenticeship program. It's kind of a hybrid, apprenticeship program where we've got gentlemen working here, and we also had a girl working here at one point that were also going to school. And so my philosophy was that, hey, as they're going to school, they're coming into the shop. Well, I'm going to maximize their exposure to all sorts of technology to one, keep their interest up and make sure that they're aware of where the deficiencies are at in the industry, where the lack of skills are. And a lot of it was electronics. So what Ryan was talking about, understanding computer science, right? So understanding how to troubleshoot when things don't work right. You have to troubleshoot your PC sometimes when you go to hook up an OEM system and you're spending 15 minutes. So having those skill sets are just awesome. And in my shop, we do a lot of ADAS stuff here. I do a lot of ADAS training, but I've got my young guys actually involved with doing ADAS calibrations, and they're understanding how to do it, what the outcome is, how to gauge the performance of the vehicle, um, all those things that basically make this trade a little more sexy than swapping out engines, right? And even swapping out an engine takes a lot of skill, right? You've got to handle connectors properly, keep things clean. Dirk was talking about the resistance added just with a little bit of dust. But, when you take off connectors or hose plumbing connections, you've got to keep all that stuff closed up. So as these young technicians, as they're going to school, getting all their basic principles in order, they're seeing the real world and the real world process of, hey, how do you do this? How do you pull this out? How do you maximize your time as well? So time management is huge. You know, get these fluids draining, and then you can come over here and maybe start disconnecting these connectors and getting things prepped, and then get your workspace prepped, and doing all those things to understand the whole picture of what it is that you're going to address. And so employing those what how I got into that, it was that I started, I stayed involved with the local high schools and local community college programs, and I'd sit on a couple of advisory boards, and we have regular meetings. They're always asking, hey, what do we need? What do we need to feed? And I'm happy that I'm actually there, because the heavy influence, though, is coming from the dealerships. And the dealership, this one school has a heavy Toyota program, and a lot of the technicians end up going to Toyota. And I tell my students here that are working for me, I go, I don't want to invest a bunch of time and then have you go to Toyota. They said, no. I've talked to my colleagues in school about their experience, and you know what they're doing? They're changing oil for 3 years before moving on to something else. And I'm going, man, that's just the wrong recipe. And it's a shame that's taking place. But I think the other thing that we're going to need to fix in this environment is the fact that technicians are expected to have a boatload of tools to conduct their work. And really, the shop needs to invest in it needs to have a good investment so that the technician can actually thrive, and we're not depending on them to have $150,000 worth of equipment. And it just doesn't make good business sense, from a shop owner's perspective, that if I have that technician that's leveraged with all that and then he leaves, I've got a huge hole in my operation that I can no longer deliver service on. So yeah, that's that's my take on where we're going. And I don't know what happened to Jim. It looks like he's is he still with us?
I'm here. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, your
Slight
video's
light,
out.
slight.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Slight
yeah, your
connectivity
video's
issue
out.
here. Um,
Okay.
yeah. Uh, so Scott, as a shop owner, do you feel that shops need to change the way they attract their customers to service these technologies?
I think so. I mean, presenting us as an option, a lot of times the consumer is not very knowledgeable about the most sophisticated device that they use every day, and that's their automobile. And I think we do a lot of consumer education. And when we're doing our consumer education, um, we're marketing ourselves. I mean, we're demonstrating we have the skills and capabilities and the ability to handle these vehicles. When a car comes rolling up the driveway and they've never driven one of those before, and it's got a screen and there's no turn stalks or whatever, you don't want us fumbling around trying to figure out how to move that car, because that does not bestow any confidence. So we regularly work with our front office staff, to make sure that they're fully briefed on all the different types of vehicle technologies. As I mentioned earlier, we have a couple of loaner Priuses, and a lot of times we're putting a person in a Prius for the very first time, and we're educating them along the way. And it's funny, we get comments coming back, because we make them fill up the tank, before they return it, and they come back and they go, "Oh my God, this thing only took a gallon to fill it up, and I've been driving it for 3 days." And so they're getting knowledge about these next gen vehicles. So I know for our shop, we do a lot of marketing, just letting people know about what we do, by either through social or some of the local ads, and making sure that people are fully aware of what we can do. And I've been going heavy after some Tesla customers, and we're getting more and more of those, because Tesla has actually opened up a lot of capabilities for us. And I'm very happy, because when I bought my 2018, almost 6 years ago, I could not get into anything back then, and now I can remote into these vehicles, and do a little bit of triage without even seeing the car. And when a customer sees that we have that capability, I think again that builds trust and confidence, and it demonstrates that we understand our business and what we're going after. And I can't wait to see what's happening in the next decade or so.
Yeah, Scott, that's great perspective. I have a question for Dirk. What does a shop look like that is likely to succeed as with these new technologies coming in? Like, what are their characteristics? I know when I go into a shop and I have a background in wheel service, I'll look at what kind of lifts they got, how new is the tire machine, where's their
Mhm.
AC machine, how
Yeah.
clean is it? Where's their parts washer? What does that look like? Like that's how I'm gauging the health of a shop is kind of is it an orderly shop? The status of their capital equipment. Is there a different set of things you look at to be able to service the very latest vehicle?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, you have to first look at your customer, and the reality is that your customer of that vehicle who bought an electric vehicle, who bought a Tesla or a Rivian or a Lucid, or name all those companies who are building those great vehicles, those customers are really, really tech savvy people. They're studying and knowing everything about their car. So you dealing now with a customer, like, the customer may most likely, not may, most likely know more about their car than I know as an expert. Then they're driving it, they're figuring out fix, they're watching YouTube videos, they are on this and they are super excited. And I think that's the reason why those newer manufacturers are so successful. Why Volkswagen, for example, as one of the largest automotive supplier, put $5 billion into Rivian to get their software possibilities. Rivian changed their themes in their vehicle. Like now it's Halloween, they make things orange for the consumer. So consumer getting super excited about this. Those consumers to see changes I bought my vehicle, my Audi Q7 is my Audi Q7 like I bought it 5 years ago, so there's no change there. So what I want to come back is um, the customer has a completely different it's a completely different customer world now who drives those vehicles, and me as a repair facility have to be a little bit go this direction, what I can do to make those guys excited to come to me. And when I hear that Scott is excited about have those Tesla repair possibilities, I'm excited like him that we have access to those to diagnostic tools and others, and access to all the data of that to repair and support those customers. Then the reality is there's now so many Teslas on the market that the Tesla network can't even maintain it. They are 3 to 5 months out for a repair appointment. So what they want to do, they want their repair repaired. So that's the reason it's great that independent workshops like Scott take this on. So what have they to do to make it a little bit different? Of course, you have to provide a clean environment. I would like to see the separation from combustion, oil, and all the more like dirtier work. And then you have an area where you deal with really the electrical world and have that clean environment created, where you see and show a little bit more laptops and other things. And when I would see as a consumer, oh, he has laptops and he has those capabilities, I don't want to see a thing where you drain your oil in on stuff like this. There's little things for them to know and to do, but have a huge, huge impact. Okay, this is not now. I always say, I ask do you do AC service? Do you service AC units in your car, in cars? Yes. Do you do this already on hybrid and electric vehicles? Oh yeah, yeah, I do it. Do you have a second machine for doing this? No. Why? Hmm. Okay, you know the oil what you put into lubricate your AC compressor should be a different. Yeah, yeah, I put a different oil in, of course. So, but traces of the oil what you get out or pull out of the combustion engine AC unit can contaminate that oil, and it's a different oil. It's a non-conductive oil in AC. So there is so much to know, and you can have major influence. Then that could cause an insulation fault in the system. So coming back to your question, clean environment, show a little bit more laptops and other things. When you do ADAS calibration, that looks cool to stage that really nice and show those modern and new capabilities. Um, that would be something what I would like to see from a independent repair shop.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I would like to move to this future 5+ years out and thinking about the future and some of the advanced technologies that have come in. And you can look at business models in the aftermarket that exist today that just didn't exist 10 years ago. When you talk about there are ADAS calibration centers, when 10 years ago there was no such thing. There is remote programming, which reminds me in, I think it was 2010, an engineer showed me, hey, I built this and we can remote into a shop and actually reprogram and diagnose a vehicle remotely. And my response was, you have to pay for a Windows computer there and here to do that. And plus, it's a service. And I was kind of skeptical on that as a business model, given the hardware expense of what I saw, and plus the need to do the service. And I'm still kind of taken aback by the amount of remote programming and the remote diagnostics that's happening, especially in the collision shops. And now you've got these Uber for reprogramming. And so you have advanced vehicle technologies, but you also have other enabling technologies, things, the cloud infrastructures. Now generative AI is starting to make an appearance a little bit, and I'll put the advertisement for Diagnostic Network on here, that we have an AI agent that helps technicians every day on there as kind of an instantaneous, here's some things you might want to think about. So as you peer ahead and probably focus, and this is kind of a tough question, but Ryan, are there business models that you see beginning to emerge that you think are kind of here to stay, or maybe a problem that shops are consistently struggling with that is going to enable something new?
That is a tough question, but I think combining on answers given by Scott and Dirk previously, you see the shop of the future investing in the technician and taking some of the burden off them. We're friends with guys like Kirk Holland and Seth Thorson, who you walk in any of their shops, they've got the toolboxes built in, they supply the hand tools, they invest heavily in education for their technicians. They want the best people, they invest in them, and they get them, and it's a significant difference. I look at my old shop, 28 bay facility. They've already moved to blocking off a couple bays for calibrations, and I see in the near future moving the transmission portion of the business elsewhere and having an EV entrance, just like what Dirk had mentioned here. And they've already got a separate, like, they painted a bright green AC machine, and so it's used on anything with an electric compressor. And so, helping cater to this unique audience of consumers, these early adopters, again, the people that probably know more about their car than you do. And it's, again, I think changing to that, not so much just the, Uncle Bob's Shade Tree Mechanics or something, bring us anything you have. So I really see more specialization coming here and the need for it, right? It's harder to just keep up on everything. There's so much changing right now. And I think the need of the specialists will certainly rise in this space as we move into the future.
Dirk, I'd love to hear your thoughts about what the future looks like, and because I think you focus specifically on this area in a lot of your work.
Yeah, so I on of course the electric vehicle segment, what I'm majority support is yeah, we have to get to battery repair in the future, so that we can really service those batteries. The question what I always do in training classes when I'm looking in an inverter. An inverter is the heart of an electric vehicle. What does an inverter? Converts DC into AC to propel the electric motor, for example. Um, what is in there? There is transistors in there. The transistors switching on and on and on and on really really fast. Transistors don't like to get overheated, for example. Since we know all the cooling system on an electric vehicle, it's much greater and much bigger than what we know out of a combustion engine. So now you have a cooling leak. Cooling leak happens. That means your inverter gets not cooled, and then the transistor fails. So now the question, what I want to answer with that is, where's this going? Are we putting a $5, $6, $7, $8,000 inverter in this car? Or do we relearn electronics and electricity and say at some point, I put an IGBT in that, or six of them, what they are in there, and then that transistor is maybe 15, 20, maybe $25 a piece. And I solder them in, make sure everything is in there, works greatly, test everything, and do it. So back in the days when I came to the US, I heard a word what was called Radio Shack. Is Radio Shack coming back? That's my question for everybody here. Maybe for Scott, he's such a little Radio Shack guy in my mind always when I meet. So Scott, is Radio Shack coming back? And are we going to more sophisticated electronics repair with modern cars? The work will be there for everybody, but it will be different.
Yeah, so just to answer that question directly, yeah, I think that there's, with the chip, all the stuff that's happened to our world, the last, 5 or 6 years, this stuff is lasting a lot longer than people expected, right? And these modules out there are obsolete. You can't get some parts for them, but you can go to DigiKey or you can go to wherever. That's where I usually go. But I used to go down I used to run down to Radio Shack all the time to get stuff. I remember that reminds me of a Volvo we had in here one day. Somebody hooked up the idle air control motor and swapped it with the three position idle switch. Okay, and they shorted out the idle air control motor. They blew up the transistor, and I remember I took that transistor out, got the part number, went and got one, put it in there, and I saved that computer and made it work. So yeah, that is actually happening. In fact, I see it happening on the diagnostic network. That's one of my windows into the field. I see people doing this all the time, and there's guys on there advertising classes, teaching classes on how to do this, how to become experts in that. And yeah, we're probably going to see that because some of these vehicles, I'm looking at like this vehicle here. What's this vehicle going to look like in 30 years? And who's going to be fixing it? That's the question that I have. Um,
Yeah,
and just to
that's really
add
one of the
on to what,
final. Go ahead, Scott.
yeah, go ahead. Well, yeah,
Well,
what I was
I
going to
think
say
that
is that
leads to one of our.
you go.
You go first. I'm going to wait this time.
Okay. All right. Well, that's, just to add on to what the other two gentlemen said, we've been investing. I'm always investing, one in myself, but two in my staff, my office staff. And I think the shop of the future really they need to live all of the experiences, right? If you become highly knowledgeable of like what is home charging all about, what is happening there, who's going to be troubleshooting that kind of stuff. If I look in Tesla service information, they actually have stuff in there to help them troubleshoot home chargers. And so if the technician's understanding, hey, I got to validate the car, and we need to validate the vehicle or the home device. So I think the next generation shops are, they're going to need to make those investments. The other thing I didn't hear a discussion on was the transactional part of it. So consumers, these savvy consumers, are used to, they're ordering things online and walking into, XYZ coffee shop and picking up their order. Well, we've been working on that for probably the last 8 years here, where consumers we can do a virtual exchange. They can drop their car off with the keys and the key thing. We communicate electronically with them, and then they transact, they pay for it, and they just pick the car up. So the next generation of customers are going to want to transact on those terms, and shops need to be paying attention to that because that's going to alienate them, or that's going to separate their consumer's choice, or separate that consumer from picking that shop to do that work.
Yeah, okay. And then one of the final topics is kind of this overall trend of the repair mix between the dealership and the aftermarket shop. And in Europe, there's about a 10-point difference than there is in the U.S. as far as the percent of repairs that end up at a dealer versus an aftermarket shop. And so, Ryan, do you see any threat to the aftermarket from these increasing complexity, increasing, a very high capital cost to do ADAS and EVs and people waiting? Do you see a threat to the share of repair that the aftermarket does from these?
On the surface, yes, but because of, again, free economy, free trade, the aftermarket was created out of necessity, right? I mean, our company's been around for 105 years. And if you look at some of the history of that and why Standard Motor Products came into existence, it was because of unavailability of products at the OE level and a need for a better component. And so that's what's great about the aftermarket is the ingenuity. The trailblazers like Scott or Dirk that are out there finding a way to get it done and service vehicles better than what the dealer is. Dirk mentioned some of the Teslas are 3 to 5 months out. Well, who wants to wait 3 to 5 months for their vehicle? And so if there's a necessity out there, there's going to be people in the aftermarket to find a way to create a solution to that. And again, just many times it's just a better service experience overall for the consumer. And as long as the aftermarket continues to evolve with this stuff, it's a great opportunity for all of us here to improve upon ourselves and make a better customer experience. So again, I think there might be a little dip here. There's obviously obstacles to overcome, but we've done it before, and I don't see why this is any different than electronic ignition or fuel injection.
My position exactly. And, the aftermarket finds a way, and the changes are rippling through the aftermarket as we speak from these, and it's visible with the business models that are emerging. And how these opportunities are being met by the aftermarket. So I tend to agree with that. And perhaps a few closing remarks, Dirk, before we sign off here. Your perspective on the these technologies and how the aftermarket better continues to embrace and to better embrace these, because this I call ADAS is kind of like ABS on steroids, right? When ABS first came in, it was a difficult thing to service, but it didn't require reconfiguring a shop and spending tens of thousands of dollars to service these. And the same for EV. I mean, the investment is causing pause. So, any final closing remarks from you about how the aftermarket can step forward?
Of course, always my first answer is to that to train and educate yourself, make you aware with the products. Then I think another word felt as well was specialization. Specialization. Oh, Jesus Christ. That was bad pronounced. Become a specialist maybe for a certain amount of brands. Make sure you're not overdoing it with that. The manufacturers you want to take on for your repair, and invest, of course, besides education, also in the needed tooling. In my opinion, the tooling costs are going, in my opinion, a little bit down. Then a lot is diagnostic tool capabilities. Yes, you need a lift table like Scott needs one. I get you one, Scott. By the way, when you need one, I have a few standing around. Uh, Battery lift table, yes, yes, but in milliohm, mega ohm meters, stuff like this. But I don't have the feeling the tooling costs increasingly crazy when you want to go into electric vehicles. Yes, of course, you want to do ADAS. You need ADAS calibration tools. But there's a lot of great solutions out there. The solutions getting better, so I'm not so worried about the tooling cost. Honestly, maybe I'm wrong, but number one and two steps is get you educated on it, get your team educated on it, and number two is yeah, specialize yourself to a certain amount of brands what you really, really can master and not overdo it and say, I can do it all. You will not. Every vehicle is a little bit different and every brand is different.
Yep. Okay. And Scott, why don't you land the plane here, as we say.
Yeah,
Offer
sure.
us your 30-second rallying cry for the aftermarket.
Yeah, just to kind of pin on what Dirk was talking about, understand your market, right? So I think the business owners, the shop owners out there really need to understand exactly what their business market looks like. In some regions of the country, it doesn't make sense to even consider the EV stuff because if you're in the middle of Montana, on a ranch or something, you're probably not buying any EVs. But the future, you've got to continue to invest in your staff and your knowledge, and then also keep an eye on what's going on in this technology world. Right? We talked a little bit about the AI, but I see a big thing happening where this AI is going to help the technician, the repair person, mine through all of that vast data to understand how to troubleshoot the vehicle a little bit better. Bring some of those assets forward, because right now I look at service information and it's highly fragmented. I've got to spend a lot of time jumping through all these different hoops just to get the bits and pieces that I need to go address the car. If I could just ask the AI guy to bring me this data, I can approach the car in a more reasonable fashion and probably get a little more data along the way that might help me understand that vehicle and get towards a proper solution and not make a misdiagnosis. Because the last thing you want to do
Yep.
is, here, I want to put this part on, and then all of a sudden you find out, oh, that didn't fix it, and now what do we do?
Yep.
So, but
Yep.
the
So Scott,
future,
I think
I would say,
yeah, we agree with you, Scott. I think what you've done is probably queue up the next webinar of the impact of AI in the shop and what's happening today and in the future. And I think Kelly will bring it over to you to bring us into the gate here.
Thank you so much, Jim. On behalf of AAPEX, Jim, Ryan, Dirk, Scott, thank you for your time today and such a great discussion. As a friendly reminder to all of our audience, this webinar has been recorded and will be on AAPEX Show later this week. And our final webinar, which was a great shout out, thanks Jim, is going to be on October 17th. So thank you all for your time today, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everybody.